why is this happening, and why was this never happening before? And is this a side effect of openness and tolerance, where because we're more open-minded towards people that are trans or drag queens or what have you, and that there's going to be like some outer limits of this push, like what?
So
you've seen that, right?
Yeah, I've seen it. I think it's always interesting because like it's easy to like cherry pick one or two things, and like you said, there's many instances of this, and I've seen them, and I don't understand like bringing your child to something like this. I don't know how like common that is, or if it's a cherry picked instance that now gets picked up by everybody as kind of chum and passed around, and it's something that happened once, and now it seems like, oh, everyone's doing this, and
it's not everyone. But the thing about the internet is there's so many instances. There's so many of them, and then people see those instances and they duplicate it, which is becomes acceptable.
Right. So I guess the like pushback I've heard from my whole question is like, how did drag queens story hour? Let's just talk about story hour become a thing. When did,
what do you mean by that? Like, drag queen story hour. So it's drag queens reading stories to children.
Yeah, and the pushback is
history. 2015 in San Francisco. Drag Queen Story Hour started in 2015 in San Francisco. Was created by Michelle Tea. Then the executive director of the nonprofit Radar Productions. Nonprofit, LOL. The first events were organized by Julian Delgado Lopera of the Virgie Tovar. T, who identifies as queer, came up with the idea after attending children's library events with her newborn son and finding them welcoming but heteronormative.
Okay.
She imagined an event that was more inclusive and affirming to the LGBTQ families. Okay. First event was held at the Eureka Valley Harvey Milk Memorial Branch Library, LBGT Castro neighborhood of San Francisco, and featured drag queen Persia as well, and was well received by that community, I guess. And other DSH events in San Francisco featured several drag queens of color, including Honey Mahogany, Eve St. Croissant, and Panda Dolce. As of February 2020, there are 50-plus official chapters of DSH spread internationally, as well as other drag artists holding events at libraries, schools, bookstores, and museums. October 2022, a nonprofit organization officially changed its name to Drag Story Hour to be more inclusive and reflect the diverse cast of storytellers.
For queen.
Yeah, queen. Can't say just queen.
Well, so
I'm a drag king.
I think even Sarah Silverman did like a whole video about this, but she was saying, what's the difference between like a drag queen and a clown reading to your kids? And I mean, clowns are fucking creepy.
They're fucking creepy. Yeah, those are weird
so
too.
I'm actually maybe more inclined to be creeped out by a clown than a drag queen.
Depends, it depends on what's going on at the show. If it's just a person is dressed up like a woman who wants to read things.
So I think this is where two things are getting combined as one. Drag queen story hour is like you go to a library and there's a drag queen reading a story to your kid.
Right.
The drag queen shows that we're seeing kids taken to, right. I don't know what that is.
Well, I think that's what comes out of Drag Queen Story Hour when people take it to the next level.
Okay.
I think that's what people are concerned with. I mean,
like
Drag
the
Queen Story
slope?
Hour. Yeah. Drag Queen Story Hour. Someone's dressed like a woman and reading the. Who cares? Like, what's the big deal?
Yeah, I mean, I understand the intent behind starting that.
Yeah, for sure. If you're a part of an LGBT family and your kids are only used to seeing a traditional father-mother relationship, and they have two moms or they have two dads, yeah, that could be fucking weird, and this would be like a nice little thing to make them feel comforted.
Right.
That like it makes them feel part. Like there's other communities other than these traditional, communities that have been depicted in the media for decades and decades.
Right.
Yeah, makes sense.
But I mean, I guess this is the conservative kind of slippery slope argument for like gay marriage is, when you start normalizing things like drag queen story hour, then you have drag queen strip club hour for the kids, and now you have degeneracy and
but that argument against gay marriage is preposterous. It doesn't make any sense. because what percentage of people that are involved in a gay marriage or adopted or surrogate children that come along with that are involved in these things? It's probably a tiny amount. But the problem with something like Libs of TikTok, or not even the problem with them, but the problem with the internet in general, is that you have literally billions of people. And out of those people, hundreds of millions of posting things. And out of those hundreds of millions, you're going to get thousands of things that some people are going to find questionable. But what percentage of that exists in your community? Very, very few. But the problem is when you broadcast that and then put that online, then it sort of becomes a thing that exists out there in, the zeitgeist.
Right, but who's actually putting it in the zeitgeist?
Right.
The person who's broadcasting it, there's a person who's putting it out there the first time, but what really gets it in the zeitgeist is when you use it as a flashpoint for the culture wars.
Right.
So suddenly now all of conservative media has a video and it's like chum in the water. So you're just feeding, and both sides do this. You can cherry pick some right-wing chud and be like, this is representative of all the right-wing chuds. And
Sure.
I feel like this is the downfall, why things like your podcast and podcasts in general are good, because you actually get to tease apart some of these things instead of it just being like, this is representative of every liberal that you know.
Right. Yeah, that's preposterous. It's people having an objective assessment of what's really going on is very important.